welcome to Thursdays, Movement Not Miracles. I'm Anna from Eat, Move, Be Happy, and it's not raining, so that's good, but I think there's more rain coming a little bit later, which is also good. We still need a bit more rain. The good news is my upper back seems to be behaving and sorting itself out after the mobility stuff that I've been doing over the last couple of days. So today we are going to do some work on our hips and our ankles, balance things out a little bit, and I'm going to try and show you. So we're going to do some stuff that's seated. Most of these you can either do seated or lying. I'm just a little bit concerned that you're not going to be able to see. My camera's a little bit high and I'm not trying to work out. I'm in a new space. I'm in my office and I need to be able to lower the camera a little bit. So you might have to bear with me. We might have to move the camera about so that you can see some of the bits on the floor. Hello bubble lady, I can see the bubbles flying, so I'm guessing that's Sarah. I can't read who's here, but I can see that there are people arriving, which is brilliant. So that's a sign for me to stop wittering and to get on with Movement Not Miracles. And as the name suggests, this is about helping you, give you some ideas for some of the stuff that you can do easily at home to keep moving, to keep your joints healthy, maybe to stretch through some of your muscles. We're not professing to be able to perform miracles. The one thing that we do know is if we move more, then we get better over time. So we get good at what we do. So if we practice keeping our joints moving and healthy, they are more likely to stay healthy, barring some injury. But generally, movement is good. And focus on what you can do. So as I'll try and sort of show you some of the ways that you can improve or increase the stretch or the movement, but focus on what you can do. Doing something is better than doing nothing. So to start off with, if you are seated, and I've just spotted another flaw in my plan, I'm sitting on my office chair and it's got wheels, so I'm sort of hoping it's not going to start skating across the floor. However, if you are seated, and you can do this one seated or standing, sit right on the edge of your chair and sit up tall, so you're sitting with good posture. And we just, to start off with, want to get those hips beginning to think that they're going to start moving. So we're just going to pull our knee up towards our chest. So what tends to happen, we end up sitting in this position for a long period of time, and we get really tight through the front of our legs, our hip flexors, and we're going to move on to those a little bit later, but we also get tight through our hip. Our hip is actually a ball and socket joint, so it should move all around, not just in this plane. So, but if you're seated, this is the move that, or standing, this is the move that we're going to do to start off with. Now, we're also, if you just hold that position and then start to twizzle your ankles. So start to persuade your ankles that actually we're going to do some movement. So think of a really big circle and then go back the other way, but really pointing and flexing that ankle joint. We sometimes forget about ankles. And the problem with that is, if our ankles are stiff, just from our general movement, if we can't push and transfer our weight through our ankle joint, then something else has to take the slack. And so it can end up with either problems in our feet, or our knees, or our hips, which then can travel up your back. So, well, let's go the other way. So forgetting about your ankles is not a good idea. Okay, and this ankle, my right ankle, is much stiffer than my left, so I do need to do some work on it. Right, so this is where I want to move to the floor, and I have a feeling that you're not going to be able to see me, so I'm going to move the camera. So come down here with me and let's see how this works. Hopefully I'm not going to make you feel too sick by moving you around. Okay, so you can still do this if you're seated, but it's a little bit easier if you're lying down. Don't worry that you can't see my head. These are the bits that are most important. So to start off with, I want you to lie on the floor, lifting your ankle mid-thigh, and you are just going to pull that knee in towards your chest and then push it back out again. So again, we're going for mobility, so we're just going to persuade that hip to move in a slightly different way. So you can do this if you're sitting in a chair. And you also might feel a bit of a stretch in the muscle on the outside of your hip, your piriformis, and into your glutes, which is fine. And then we're going to swap legs. Ooh, and this one feels really particularly tight for me today. I'm not quite sure what I did on it yesterday. Or maybe it was running this morning. I actually had quite a nice run this morning. I had to put my longs back on, which was a little depressing. No shorts and t-shirt today, but it didn't rain on us, so that was okay. So pull that leg, the knee across your body, and then push your hip out the other way. Nice and gently, we're not forcing that movement, but we're just encouraging that hip to move. Okay, and then, to start off with, it's slightly easier version of this is if you cross your legs, and sitting, I've said this before, but sitting cross-legged, my yoga teacher always used to say, we sit in chairs far too often, and sitting cross-legged is much better for our hips because it encourages the hips to move and not just stay in a artificial position. So what we're going to do now is imagine that you've got a ball in your lap, and we're just going to round down over. If you are seated and you can't cross your legs on the chair, if you cross one leg over on your rest your ankle on your thigh and round down over, that's absolutely fine. So we're going to do cross-legged first, and we're just going to round down over as low as we can go and then move back up. So you get a bit of a stretch through your back, but we're also working on the movement through our hips with this. So down we go. So we're going for movement today rather than the stretching. So if we're going for the mobility, then swap legs. So swap the cross of your legs, sitting nice and tall, and round down over that ball. And then to get a little bit more movement through your hips, to extend that and move the stretch into your inner thigh as well. If you do the butterfly stretch, so if I show you from the front, and I'm not particularly good at this because my hips are not very flexible, but if you put the soles of your feet together and let your knees flop out to the side, if you are really flexible in your hips, your knees might be able to touch the floor. As you can see, I am not, and that's okay. So we do what we can do. So again, we're aiming to sit tall, so don't fall backwards. You should be on the bones of your bottom, and we're just aiming to move those hips down towards. You can use your elbows to help a little bit, and if you round down over your toes, you can see I can't move very much, but that's okay. And because we're going for movement, we'll just keep moving in and out. So that's a bit of a deeper stretch than just the leg cross, but hopefully you're starting to feel some movement in those hips. And one more just to extend that. It's a similar one now to what we were doing before, but rather than bringing your knee across, now I want you to push your knee out. So you're encouraging that hip to move, to roll around and away. And again, a nice gentle move. We're not really yanking that knee. And the action that you're thinking of is to roll through that hip. So you want to focus on, I know this might sound really obvious, but your hip joint. So think of where the bones connect together and see if you can really get into that hip joint. I'm going to have to do some stretching of this glute, I tell you. But that's okay. Right, what's next? We've done that one. So let's do a little bit more on ankles. So if you kneel down, if you're seated because you can't get out of your chair and kneel down, then if you concentrate on flexing and pointing your ankles. So what if you're with me and you're kneeling, if you've got your toes tucked underneath, and we're just going to rock from side to side. So we've said this before, this should encourage a nice big stretch through the base of your foot and through your big toe, another very important joint. And then we're just going to reach forward and stretch up. Now you can't see my ankles there, but you're aiming, well maybe you can. You're aiming to get your heels to the floor, but you're aiming to get some movement through that ankle joint. Let's do that again. So we'll just rock, and then, oh, I think that's a little bit further. There was something cracking there, I've got no idea what it is. And let's just do that one more time. And then we'll do, so we're going to kneel on the floor and we're going for ankle mobility on this one to start off with. So the closer your knee, your heel is to your knee, the more of an ankle mobility move this will be. And you want your heel in line with the front of your knee. And what you're aiming for is to keep your bottom forward. So you're working through your glutes to push forward through the hips, so you've got a nice flat hip flexor on this side. So you'll be working through, if you feel your butt now, your muscles should be contracting. So they should be working, so they shouldn't be floppy. And then you're using your butt, so think of pushing yourself with your bottom rather than just moving into it. There's a distinct difference, because if you stabilise through your lower body, then this bit doesn't move and you get more movement through. Oh, my calf always goes to cramp in this one. Just wiggle that out a little bit. It doesn't like that. Set it up again. So we're thinking of pushing ourselves forward, keeping that heel on the floor and moving through that ankle joint as much as we can. So let's move it to the other side. So knee stays back, work through your butt, keep that ankle on the floor. So think of pushing with your glutes, keeping that knee back, which means you've got to be working through the outside of your butt on the leg that's bent. And just see if I can get a bit more movement out of this ankle. It's really stubborn. Okay. And then going back to the first leg, we're going to do, this time, a bit more of a stretch. I'm aiming for the inside of your thigh here. So your ankle, your heel is a little bit further away from your knee. So you're going to feel a stretch down the inside of this leg. But as you get to this point, if you think of pushing that hip forward, you'll feel some stretch down the inside of your groin on this leg as well. But you have to work, oh, this blooming calf keeps cramping. You have to work through your glute on the leg that's kneeling for that to happen. And you're working through all of your hip flexor muscles there too. Let's swap to the other side. So think of working hard here. This is more of a stretch down the inside of this leg, but when we get to the full range of movement, think of pushing that groin towards the floor and you get a stretch through this leg as well. Keep that knee back. Don't let that knee roll forwards. Okay, get the idea. Right, and lastly, we're going to stretch through the front of our hips, our hip flexor muscles, and these are the muscles that raise our legs. So these are the muscles that bring our knee up towards our belly. So when we're sitting for long periods, they get really short, and so encouraging them to lengthen is quite a good idea, and it also allows the hip joint to move in a slightly different plane. So we're going to do the lunge, front lunge version, and I'm just going to roll my mat up because it's a bit hard on your knees. Let's see, I need to come back a little bit, don't I? Otherwise you're not going to be able to see me. Okay, so we'll work through our right side first. So if that leg is just relaxing down, it's a slightly easier start stretch. So what I want you to remember, hips are pointing forwards. So don't let this knee cave in and don't be on a twizzle. So we're not facing, we're not lopsided. And then the start position, we don't want our bottom sticking out like that. So we need to really work through that glute. So your bum should be contracted, your muscles in your bottom should be contracted to push that hip forward. And then we move forwards through this knee, but working hard through your bottom to get a stretch down the front of that groin area. So really think of pushing that hip forwards that way. So your weight is in your knee and in this front heel. You can see my toes are off the floor, but I'm pushing my heel hard into the floor. And I'm also working through the glute on the left-hand side to keep that knee stable. Okay, now you can, so we said we were going to do mobility stuff, didn't we? So you can, keeping that position, move in and out of that stretch. As long as you're doing it under control, so that can encourage more movement through that part of your hip. You have to do it on the other side. So set it up exactly the same way. Work hard now through to get some stretch through that left side, and don't let that bottom creep backwards. So when you lean forwards, the temptation is to let that happen. Can you see that? Move around a little bit. So as you move forwards, the temptation is to let your bum go. But I don't want you to do that. So grip that and push forward like we were doing with the other one. Think of pushing forward using your bottom rather than using your body. Can you see the difference? So as you're working through this, you're working to keep that hip pushing forwards all of the time. It becomes an active move through the hip rather than your body just moving. I hope I'm making sense. Right, so your hips should feel a little bit more movement, maybe a little bit more stretch in them, maybe not quite so tight, which is good. Let me come down here. That's the problem when I move the camera. So hopefully all that made sense and your hips feel a little healthier. So check out our website, Eat Move Be Happy, www.eatmovebehappy.com, for lots more ideas on instructions on how to do some of the exercises, some tutorials, and also we have lots of workout with us videos, so you can work out in your own time at home. You can, it's almost like Lego workouts. So you can pick and choose from a selection. We've got quite a big selection of different exercise workouts, and you can put them together depending on how much time you've got and what you want to work on. And you can work alongside Kerin or I, or Kerin and I, because we did some of these before lockdown. And we're always adding to the library, so there's lots of variety to keep you interested. Also, there's lots more stuff around looking after your mental health and well-being, eating more healthily, and generally just lots of interesting stuff about health and well-being. So have a little look at the website and let us know what you like. There are different subscription levels, so you can choose what's right for you, and you get a 5-day free trial just to have a look around. And we think it's pretty awesome, so you'll want to stay. Let me know if there's anything you particularly want me to cover in Movement Not Miracles. Otherwise, you are at my mercy, and whichever bit of me is aching in the morning, that's what we'll do during the day. But remember, little and often, keeping moving is a really good idea. Moving more is better than not moving at all. So look after yourselves, keep mobile, and enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and I will see you tomorrow. Thank you for joining me. Oh, and share lots. The more people we can help, the better. Thanks, guys.